Welcome to Return on Intuition, the podcast where strategy meets soul. I'm Erin McMahon, a marketing leader, startup advisor, mom of two, and lifelong seeker of what's real. In a world ruled by data, speed, and artificial intelligence, there is a space where we pause to tune in. Each week, we'll explore what it means to lead, build, parent, and grow, not just with logic, but with intuition. You'll hear from founders, creators, marketers, spiritual guides, and so many more. People aligning ambition with purpose and using their intuition as a real tool for transformation. Because when we pay attention, get present, and trust our instincts, that's when the magic happens. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to Return on Intuition, where we explore the inner workings of our mind, energy, and how we navigate the signals we receive. Today, we're tackling the basic, by definition, of the podcast, intuition. We often hear about trust your gut, but how do we know it's truly intuition guiding us forward or just something like anxiety holding us back? So we're going to dive deep into this question and draw on insights from various sources. So first, let's start by defining what intuition might be. Basic Oxford Dictionary term says the ability to understand something immediately without the conscious need for reasoning. And just this definition is fraught because it is understanding something immediately, thinking about something immediately, but then not having the reasoning component. And life, our society very much relies on reasoning. Give me an explanation for why you did this. Let's walk through the logic of it, especially in business, but certainly in life too. Why are we making this decision? How can you explain it to somebody else? And if you just say, oh, it's this feeling I have, then, people tend to be a little bit skeptical, or they seek understanding, which makes sense, but it makes it harder for us to follow our intuition, and it makes it harder for us to trust our intuition because we think, well, we have to have an explanation for this. Why is this happening? So one key idea that comes up is awareness. Being aware means you're knowing that something doesn't feel right or does feel right. And based on that awareness, you go in one direction or you change course. It's about knowing you don't know everything and not trying to control it, but moving in this general direction. Another related concept is sensing energy. So having a sense and drawing into a feeling you have. Now, again, we'll get into this a little bit more. What is an energy or a feeling that could be related to anxiety, but what is that energy that is related to your intuition? A key part of this is getting in the right state of mind to understand what is coming from your intuition and then understanding what to recognize. So I've mentioned on this podcast before, but I think it's important to reiterate, is that getting in the right state of mind through practices like meditation or processing your emotions can be key in order to really listen to that inner voice you have. So processing, not suppressing emotions, is very important. That can help you get to a centered place. And also setting aside time to just listen internally or to be quiet can help you hear your intuition or get a better sense of that inner voice. A related concept to that is sensing energy. And I found this interesting was Gabor Maté, who said children, particularly those with ADD or ADHD, are often processing and absorbing energy nonverbally. And I think it's more obvious with them because of how they are engaging and reacting to the world, but we are all processing and absorbing energy that we may not consider, may be top of mind because we think very verbally. We see things that come through our five senses, but there's energy and there's other forces that play that are connecting with us that then can inform our intuition. And it's important to be aware of that. So intuition seems to connect an expansive awareness, a capacity for sensing subtle energy, and an inner knowing that guides us when we are truly present. So it's involved with perception, creating reality rather than reality creating perception. Now let's talk about what intuition is not, or at least what signals we might confuse it with. One of the most common is fear or anxiety. This one has dominated my life and continues to dominate my life because but now I'm aware and can manage it more effectively. But fear is a raw emotion that comes up, often, and it's important that we process it. And a more subtle form of that is anxiety, which isn't necessarily as sharp as fear. This is happening right now. I'm, scared of a loud noise or something like that. But anxiety is that undercurrent of, am I doing something wrong? Did I say the right thing? Am I talking to my boss the right way? Did I, propose the right thing? Which can inhibit us from, taking risks, but then also can lead us in the wrong direction. It can make us risk averse. It can suppress our inner knowing and our inner feeling of what's right. And it can block some of those energy signals that help our inner knowing. So it helps us get stuck, and it puts us at a limited short-term point of view. So this is important to realize and recognize. And how can we recognize the difference between intuition? And people feel and hear intuition in different ways. And, you may get signals in different ways based on, what the situation is, or whether it's a work scenario and a project, or a feeling about a person in your life or something like that. You may in some case get a physical feeling, or in some case you might get an idea or a sense to go in one direction. But I think the key point is it is more of a consistent, persistent, but not alarming message. I think that that's key, because with anxiety and with fear, they're very much linked to emotions that will stress us out and will be related to short-term changes. And if it is something that, pops in your head and urges you to react immediately, then it's probably not related to your intuition. So the positive thing about intuition is that it's okay to follow it, to test it, to slowly try to embrace it or think about it, and that can usually lead you in the right direction. Sometimes that's hard because you have a feeling and you want to act on that feeling. I certainly have a hard time not acting on feelings I have, but it's important to think, is this my anxiety talking, or is this really a message from my internal knowing? So, some examples of that are like, you're having a hard time at your job and you just, you want to quit right away, which, a lot of people have that feeling and they don't. But if there's a part of you that says, should I be doing something else? Then the best way to deal with it and or follow that feeling is, try out something else, do research on that other thing that you could be doing. Take steps and try to move in that right direction, and see if those signals, continue to spark your interest or continue to lead you in a direction that is appealing. And ultimately, I think that's a key part of intuition, is that it leads you down a path and the path unfolds. It doesn't necessarily show you the whole picture, but it can help guide you in the right direction. So a strategy for going about this is the power of asking questions instead of getting locked into one answer or, the immediate conclusion. Ask key questions. Is it true? Is there another way to look at this? What else is possible? So, for example, with a crazy idea you have, or, something like that, if you risk taking the idea, what are the consequences of that? Or what are all scenarios that you can look at? What do you truly want to do? Or what's your ultimate end goal? And what are other possibilities that can be considered? Or explore it more if you again have this initial feeling, ask more questions about, why am I feeling this way? Why do I have this persistent quiet feeling that creeps up, and what are small steps I can take to move forward? So I think, we talked about another key part of this as you're asking questions is to become aware of energy and vibration in the body. So the signals of intuition are, very much becoming calm and present. But then as you are, pursuing and making choices, how does your energy, your core feel about it? How do you react to it as you are moving through the process? So like, let's say that, you had a bad day at work, you are, or you don't like your job, but you're still going through the motions, get back to the place of center, but then also keep in your mind, okay, how is continuing in this direction making me feel? Is it still making me feel negative? Is it still stressing me out? Is it still providing the right fulfillment for me or no? And then make decisions based on that. So, how can we strengthen our feelings of intuition and reduce the noise of fear and judgment? Focus on awareness and presence. Key part of that is literally just, I've mentioned breath work before, but my favorite is the box breath, breathing in for 4 counts, holding your breath for 4 counts, breathing out for 4 counts, and then holding your breath after the out breath for 4 counts. And doing that for just a few cycles can help regulate and balance your emotions so you can help balance and connect. The other key thing for listening to intuition is letting go of some of those external signals, which is very difficult. And that includes the judgment that you have that you think is, that you're anticipating the outside world will have, and let go of what the competition and or what others externally may think. So those, it doesn't mean disregard it for the whole time, but the key to thinking about your intuition and really surfacing it at a high level is making it just like letting go of those things for a period of time. Like, the more I use my imagination to isolate things and like not compartmentalize things completely, but just say like, if I were to drop away all these other considerations, what would I want? Or if, thinking about, we have constraints because of where we live and we own a house, but if that weren't true, what would I want to do? And then, once you get that sense, which helps you tune into what you really want, it can then lead you to distill why you want that. And then you can slowly build other things back in. So I think that's key for making small decisions, big decisions, that sort of thing. And strengthening our intuition, practically, I love by experimenting with small things. What am I going to have for dinner? I'll let my intuition decide. Or what am I going to wear? I'll let my intuition decide. And just see where that leads you. I mean, the craziest thing is me like playing YouTube videos in the morning and just like scrolling through and saying like, I don't know why this sparks my interest, but it does, which obviously gives a lot of power to the YouTube algorithm in terms of, what's being fed. But at the same time, it's obviously the engagement between the user and the algorithm. So why do I find this important? And, even though my mind might be set on watching, the latest spirituality video or something like that, what if I see something interesting about, AI and Microsoft? And then I start watching that and I get a cool insight. And I realize that small moment of trusting my intuition led to a new insight that I have. And then what that does is that helps your logical mind reinforce, that going outside of your normal routine worked. And it also helps your intuition reinforce that you're listening to it. And so it's an internal practice that can, cycle through it and just strengthen your intuition. So I think those are the key things. First of all, knowing that listening to your intuition isn't easy, especially if you are not practiced in it. It can be scary because a feeling and following a feeling goes against what the world is telling us to do, what is expected of us, how we are supposed to explain ourselves to everybody in business, personal life. Even our own egos want to know the logic so we can tell ourselves. And quite often, this is a Rory Sutherland observation that he says, and I'm sure I need to find there's another source for it, but people are very good at providing logic for why they made decisions about something, but those decisions were actually more based on instinct than they would like to express or can even admit to themselves. But because they, can backtrack and find logic to it, they say they made a logical decision. So, I mean, even take that into account as you are, maybe have a feeling and don't want to follow that feeling, that sometimes even the things you think are logical are not, quite as logical. So all that to say, listen to your instinct more, practice by focusing on the small things, try to get a sense of center and quiet and do that through things like breathwork, meditation, or if that's not appealing, just being quiet and focusing on the small things. And then for the larger things, see what steps you can take forward to move you in a direction towards your intuition and see how that feels. It's a bit of a mystery because your logical mind usually likes to project things further out in the future and says, well, if you keep going down this path, then the answer is certain, which your intuition will not give that to you. But the reality is that even if you follow your logic, the future is not certain anyway. So, that's a little bit of a fallacy and a trick that our brain plays on us. So I hope in this journey we can discover new ways to focus on our intuition in business, work, play, etc. We can speak to different experts and leaders and builders and thinkers about how they use their intuition and how that can help us in this developing age of AI technology, where all the information is, fed to us and we have to figure out how to process it and move forward. And it'll be more important to listen to the input that is coming from us in order for us to best assimilate with the world around us and make the best decisions for ourselves and how we are going to make an impact on this life we have. So remember, you have the powerful capacity for knowing, and by tuning into your awareness and letting go of what external inputs are, external expectations, you can access that guidance more clearly. So thanks for joining us for Return on Intuition, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to Return on Intuition. If something sparked your curiosity or lit you up, I'd love to hear from you. Share the episode, leave a review, or DM me with what landed. Your feedback helps shape where we go next. And remember, the best decisions don't just come from what you know, they come from what you feel. So take a breath, trust yourself, and keep following the moments that feel like magic. I'll see you next time.